And welcome to Fandom Podcast Network. And of course, the latest episode of the Lethal Mullet podcast, looking at 1991's By the Sword, episode number 302 of the show here on the 9th season. I'm your host, Adam O'Brien. And yeah, this is going to be an interesting look at a film which is all about fencing for the most part. It is a great fight film as well as a great character film. There's a little bit of a thriller to this, as well as somebody looking for redemption while the other is looking for the best in the sport itself. This is a really strong film, and it's one that we've been wanting to cover for a while. Originally, I was going to cover this with Lee Fillingsness of course, the Blood of Kings Highlander podcast, but he's busy with his fight monkeys. That's right, doing all these movies and stuff, and we wish him all the best. And I mean, you're going to be seeing his stuff on the big screen very soon, no doubt. But tonight, yes, you're going to have me on here chatting about this film and what I think is kind of, it's akin to Rocky, a little bit of Karate Kid, perhaps. This is a little bit more of a city-based fight school, this fencing school. So we're going to get in that tonight. I'm recording this as I'm also about to record in about an hour's time with Kevin and Kyle on there. I think it's the Culture Clash we're doing, and it's a look at Bloodsport. And of course, me being me, I am a big Frank Dukes fan because I've got Frank's book here, The Secret Man, and I'm going to a guest on the show talking about Duke's Rue and the story. And it is a story and a half in this book here, folks. Frank Dukes' story, and of course, he's synonymous with Jean-Claude Van Damme's beginnings as well, obviously being the story of Bloodsport practically, and of course those two have gone on to work together in a number of films. I believe it was Wrong Bet he worked on, and that is of course AWOL in the UK and Lionheart in the United States. Leon Gautier, where you going from here, Leon Gautier? Yes, Jean-Claude Van Damme, folks. And we've got that and much, much more on, of course, this network here, the Fandom Podcast Network, which you can find at fpnet.podbean.com. And, of course, me, The Lethal Mullet. You can catch me on there. And, of course, at The Lethal Mullet on all socials, folks. Let's get into it.
All right, lights, camera, action. Now, where's the mullet? Where is he? Is he coming in by chopper again?
And now, live from Quinlan's Cantina in the Gold Coast of Australia, it's time again for your dose of action cinema history from the 80s, 90s, and beyond with the Lethal Mullet Podcast. Oh, g'day, mate. How you going? And cut. All right, folks. So you know the deal. We're going to be chatting about a lot of stuff coming up. Of course, we've got quite a bit of. Well, let's talk about it. We've got quite a bit of Highlander out there right now, with people sitting on the set of Highlander and taking little snapshots of Henry. And Henry's out there, and he's looks kind of like a bikie. He's got his leather jacket on and trench coat sort of look, and obviously it's there to hide the dragon-headed katana. That was forged in 1,000 years before they were meant to make them, apparently. Well, we'll see. Whether they follow that through in the next one with Ramirez, we'll find out. Obviously, he's in a lot of scenes with Dave Bautista, and Bautista is in his Kurgan outfit, which is interesting that he's sort of wearing a priest's robes, would you believe? But that kind of is smart when you think about it, because if you wear a priest's robes and you're on holy ground, guess what? If you're on holy ground, you ain't nothing to worry about. You ain't gonna get hurt. That's what they tell me. I'm looking around here. Hey, Highlanders. Is there a Highlander around here? I can't tell. No, I'm on holy ground. So obviously Russell Crowe and John Honzu, a ton of people, folks. It's going to be a big film. Not coming out till 2027, but let's hope Henry Cavill's Voltron hits before that, where he's playing King Arthur, king of the castle on Eris, and my big robot is in 5 pieces. So he says. So that will be coming up, of course. Something to look forward to. And No doubt. I mean, we're all keen to see what, obviously they've done here. They shot that here at Warner Brothers Movie World's little studio set up next to a Village Roadshow, which I don't know if it's still called Village Roadshow. I think it's been taken over since then. Those are the days when they made Fortress with Christophe Lambert there, and many a bad guy from many a sci-fi franchise, maybe even somebody you real know. Yes, from RoboCop. And that 70s show, yes, you know the man I mean. But anyway, let's just get on to more to talk about. Obviously, Highlander was something that had obviously one film, which probably should have been just one film back in the day, because the myriad of sequels have just been getting progressively worse. But the TV show is the saving grace. It had such a phenomenal yet simple sort of layout and style. Yet what is so good about that TV show is that it had a great cast, it had a story people actually cared about, and it built the mythology of Highlander really well, and smart too. Look, let's face it, when it comes to a lot of these franchises, the TV shows start out strong. First season's got a ton of money thrown in it, and people show interest obviously the first season, unless it's a cult TV classic or if it's something that really goes off like Friends or something like that, something that's predominantly not genre, but will take off. Then it's the diminishing returns that you get from successive seasons, because people lose interest and they go and watch other stuff. They watch Game of Thrones until the season 8 sucks, and it blows big time, folks. It's, why do you think that George R. Martin hasn't really pumped out that bloody last book yet? Or second last, should I say? Still 2 more books to go in the series, and he's playing around with other series, and the House of the Dragon, and now Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Now here's a good series, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It ain't trying to do nothing much but tell Duncan Egg's story, and it's 100 years before a Game of Thrones. That is, of course, the novel we're talking about, and season 1. And it is a brilliant bloody series because it doesn't purport to be anything other than doing tourneys, which is what it's all about. That's what Dunk and Egg are all about. And obviously a knight and his squire. The squire just happens to be the heir of the Targaryen kingdom. And this guy's going to teach them as a hedge knight, one that sits outside the city and sleeps on the grass under a tree. And yes, trees leak water, just as Egg tells him. But at the same time, it is a great and interesting, I think, idea. And for George, it's not like the other books, those novellas, which there's 3 of so far, and apparently he does want to write more, even though he hasn't finished Winds of Winter, folks. Come on, George. Must be something that the names of George. You got George Lucas, didn't want to finish his sequels. He's, I want to make a museum. Get married again. And he didn't worry about it. Then you got George, our George out here, George Miller, who, he's made Fury Road. He's made Furiosa. He goes, if I want to put another Max in there. Even though Max is in Furiosa, if you look, it's not Tom Hardy, folks. It's just a placeholder stuntman at best, and it is the stuntman from the film. And Ed's stuntman, if I remember right. But anyway, regardless. And then you've got George R. Martin. He's, I don't know if I want to finish those. Because, yes, season 8 blows. It's not that great. And, we're expecting more. And the books aren't exactly the same as the TV show. We know that. That's a given. And, at the end of the day, what do you do when you realize that your story sucks? You've got to go back and rewrite. So I do believe that's what's really happened, is that George rewriting. Yeah, come on, I mean, it's only the smart thing to do, isn't it? Mm-hmm.
The number you have dialed has been changed. The new number is...
G'day, man, how you going? Follow the Lethal Mullet here on Fandom Podcast Network's master channel at fpnet.podbean.com, or subscribe on the Podbean app, where you can find all the shows. Blood of Kings, a Highlander podcast. Culture Clash, a weekly look at pop culture. You look at Making Treks, a Star Trek fan podcast. You can also check out the Mullet Guild, a look at the Dune universe from me, the Lethal Mullet. You can also check out this show and all the others like What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast, Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast, and much, much more. All on FPN. You can follow on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all podcatchers. Make sure you follow me, the Lethal Mullet, at The Lethal Mullet on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has many a thing to say about deep thought. And deep thought itself has many a thing to say about the guide, who are going to give you a guide through the maelstrom and enormity of the guide itself. Hosted by two unexpected travelers, the Lethal Mullet, all the way from Quinlan's Cantina in the Milky Way, and of course Dan the Man from Birmingham. All on the other side of the water, they have hitched a ride and come to Ursa Minor to tell you all about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which you can find whenever you find good podcasts.
That's right, folks. Check out the brand new show, Deep Thought Life, Douglas Adams and everything, monthly on, of course, the Lethal Mullet Network at lethalmulletnetwork.podbean.com or on the socials at The Lethal Mullet. You can also check it out on YouTube very soon on the Spacebook Network, hosted by the one and the only co-host here, Dan, the man from Birmingham, Dan Hadley. All here. And don't panic, we'll be back. And here we go, folks, looking at By the Sword. And what a great film this is. This is one that I found on VHS years ago, and I haven't been able to really find anywhere else. You know, it's certainly not one that you're going to find, Blu-ray. Well, I haven't seen a Blu-ray version of it. Maybe Imprint will do that. Imprint's a great company, which is pumping out some great stuff. Our next episode will be about an Imprint release of The Long Riders, a Walter Hill film, which looks at, of course, the Jesse James Younger gang, and it has influenced many films. One of the films that influenced was Young Guns, which, we're big fans of out here too. So this one is a big one, folks, and obviously it's F. Murray Abraham versus Eric Roberts. Eric is in probably his most cocky but intense performance here, man of honor, and he certainly shows that in this. He's definitely a man of honor in this. And, of course, against the one and only F. Murray Abraham playing Maximilian Suba. And, this is a great flick. This is a really strong flick that's about honor, redemption, revenge. It's all those things that duels are about, which is what fencing is all about. So let's have a quick look at the cast before we dig right into this film. F. Murray Abraham here playing Maximilian Suba. Eric Roberts as Alexandre Villard, the maestro, whatever you want to call it, of the fencing school. Sara looking absolutely gorgeous in this as Erin Clavelli. We have Bret Cullen as Danny Gallagher. Bret Cullen's been in quite a bit of work recently over the last couple of years. I think the biggest you probably remember him from would be When You Get Down to It. And this is what I find interesting, is that he's in The Dark Knight Rises as one of the police officers, but he's also, and this is the big one, is in the remake of Red Dawn. So you might remember, obviously, Red Dawn was remade with Chris Hemsworth and a whole bunch of other actors, and it was the Wolverines all over again. We've got Stoney Jackson in this as Johnson, Sherry Hersey as Thanos. We've got Carolyn Barclay, very beautiful lady, as Tatiana. And we've got Elaine Kagan as Rachel, Christopher Riddell as Jim Trevor. And he's basically the protege to obviously Eric Roberts' character in this. And I think I tell you what, with the mullet sort of hair that he's got in this, he kind of looks like, and to me at least, he looks a little bit like Anakin Skywalker in this, which I thought was interesting. So there's that sort of angle, again, one that's tempted to the dark side of fencing, if you like. So there is an angle there, and Christopher's quite good, quite a good actor. Again, we'll look at some of these guys as we go through. Jimmy Cummings as one of the street vendors, Doug Burt, we got Eva Kagan, and I believe these actually Elaine and Eve may be related to the director, which we'll talk about soon as well. But what a cast. We got some really interesting talent, and some of them you'll actually see, and Jonathan Strauss in particular, who plays his son, is also in Best of the Best. How do I know that? Well, he's got the poster sitting on there. He's the actor and assisting director of this one too, and was involved in Best of the Best. So maybe he's we'll find out. Something to do with Best of the Best, which is also another great film, which stars Eric Roberts. In this case, he's the protege, or the karate instructor master, what do you would call it, under James L. Jones, going for the title and career. So this really is an interesting film, folks. It gets on IMDb a 6.4 out of 10. I consider it should be higher than that, really. 75% for Rotten Tomatoes, which actually for them is actually a pretty damn good mark, and 3.3 out of 5 in Letterboxd, which is a format I'm not too familiar with. I know Kevin and Kyle do a lot of stuff with Letterboxd, so that's maybe something to check with their shows, Culture Clash, etc. too. So let's have a bit of a look at By the Sword, give it a bit of a sense of what is going on with this film. Now, it's a 1991 sports action film. It's probably the best way to describe it, with F. Murray and Eric Roberts as world-class fencers, and they are true athletes in every sense of the word in this. Obviously fencing is an Olympic sport. It's extremely fast, and you've got to be lean and nimble and powerful. You've got to have all those sort of muscles and power to get through with the sabers and the foils, I guess they call them as well. This is directed by Jeremy Paul Kagan. It's his first feature film, and it's all about fencing. Obviously, some of the reviews in this basically noted that the lead acting and action scenes in this were basically considered terrible in some reviews. Now, I don't know too much about fencing as such, but in this, I actually think it was pretty damn decent. Obviously, what I know of fencing is different. I have a background in mainly Japanese and some Chinese martial arts. That's predominantly what I've been taught. So when it comes to sword, it's not saber and foil and the fencing sort of work. The work I've done is mainly been derived around the Japanese sword and the Chinese jian. So no straight blade, but it's not the same blade. It's a completely different set of circumstances, and it's a different tool, particularly the Japanese blades, with their design, curvature, and obviously very different kind of sword. So I think with this, I can't really talk about that. I can say, but that they look good or not to me. But what does that mean to people that actually trained it and stuff like that? So, but I think for me, you're looking at a bunch of novices on screen for the most part, because this is a school. They're learning the high-end stuff that I was looking at with, of course, Christopher Riddell's character and Eric Roberts, and even Maximilian Suba in this with F. Murray. I think everything looks beautiful on screen from what I see of it. Again, I'm not a fencing instructor and I'm not a fencer, so I don't know what to look at to make it sound like it's good or bad. So, I look at that and, I think that, as I say, they're saying some of the lead acting can actually see was being bad or terrible or whatever. You know what? That's neither here nor there. And you know what? We're going to give it our own look at, because I think this is a freaking awesome film. All right, so what's it all about? So Alexandre Villard is a former fencing champion. He's an Olympic champion. And basically he's retired because he's undefeated. No one has been able to give him a good competition of any kind. And so instead, what he decides to do is open up a school. And from here, one of his students describes him as a freak who thinks he's living in the 14th century. And that's pretty much what it is, because you look at both characters, Alexandre Villard and Max Suba, The two of them are fishes out of water. And that's what this film is really about, is that we've got two fencers in this. And in particular, when you look at the antagonism between the two of them, it is really about two people that should have been born in the days of the Renaissance, or when the Three Musketeers were around. They are literally born and bred proper swordsmen. And they believe in, doing it without the epée's point or whatever it is, and using the épée, foil, whatever it is. They would rather do it for real and actually score a real hit. And it's something that Eric's character, Alexandre, really talks about a couple of times in the film. He's talking about how it's all about the reality of it, and it's the survival of a fencing match, So it's interesting to look at his sort of connotation of what those things are. And if you guys are interested in actually seeing it, in the show notes, you'll find that I've actually put a couple of things in there for you. So you'll find the trailer on YouTube. I do believe you can find a paid version of the entire film on YouTube if you're international. But if you're an Australian listener to Lethal Mullet, we actually have it on 7+. So you'll have to download the 7+. That's one of the free television apps. And you'll be able to watch this on that. And I do believe it's in HD, so it's a better copy than I've got. I've only got a DVD copy of this. So you can find it out there. It's out there, folks, so go and check it out. I think even the VHS copy was probably a better copy than the DVD, which looks like it's just a scaled-up version of this film. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so Max Suba has just come out of jail. He's an ex-convict who introduced himself as a fencing instructor, and he goes to the school and wants to get a job there as a teacher. But as he gets there, Villard basically pulls him aside, goes through a few routines, and in those routines, you see, he basically said, this guy sucks in his own way. And from here, he says, look, I've got work here for you if you want it, but it's only as a janitor. So Suba basically works as a janitor, and in between it, in his part-time, starts to build up his skill again as a fencer. And he was an expert fencer back in the day. So Villard is Suba spar with an ambitious student here. And this is where basically he goes through and shows different ways of beating opponents. But he also embarrasses the person that he's attacking. And this is where Villard is basically the arrogance that he shows. But there's arrogance, but there's also and not what you call unkind. He cares about his students and he cares about the school, but he wants to show reality to all this stuff. So eventually, basically, Suba finds out that he's got Villard watching him, and Villard goes, "Well, you actually can fence." So he gives him a group of students, assigns him to take on the beginners. From here, this is where we see Alexandre's approach get even more ruthless, and he's encouraging students to injure one another just to get the other point. So it's about the dark side of wanting to win. And this is where Suba's attitude is completely other. And he's about subtlety. He's about exposing weaknesses, but using it as power, and basically letting the opponent fall for that and then get beaten. So there's all these little bits and pieces, but this is where we start to see a flashback too, that Suba was actually the protege to Villard's father, and they had a duel over his wife. And Suba actually kills in that duel Alexandre's father. So this builds up to a point where Alexandre actually fills it out, figures everything, knows what's happening, and there's a dramatic duel between the two of them, and they fight up and down with real life rapiers and stuff like that. And it's neck and neck. The skill, everything, the arrogance at the end of the day, and the willingness to go further falls on Suba's side. And Suba could have done it, could have actually taken out Alexandre, but obviously he's not the same man he was, and he's somebody that doesn't let himself be goaded anymore, showing off that he's a true teacher. From here too, that Villard learns humility, and to be a master means not defeating every opponent, or to be the best, but to show humility through fighting. And this is where they acknowledge each other as maestro. So it's a beautiful film. It really is. It's not about winning in that way. It's about letting go. You know, yes, you can win all the time, but you need to be able, again, failure is the best teacher. And it teaches you different things. Humility is one of those things. And this is what this film is all about, you know. And you see Eric's character really go through, different motions. He's a complicated character. He's a character which shows all the signs of being a warrior without that of, the final bit. There's honor, there's respect, there's dignity, but there's that sort of, far-reaching cry that he has of being simply that. He is simply the one that wants to win. Crazy, but true. And that's one of those things that we have here, is one of those powerful ones. We'll be back shortly after this break.
Alrighty, mate. Time to go down to the pub for a pint, chat, action movies and more. Here on the Lethal Mullet podcast.
All right, welcome to the pub where we chat about the film, apart from the plot, obviously. So we got F. Murray Abraham as Suba. F. Murray is probably his best form, He plays complicated characters well, but this is a character that is not so much complicated, but one that has learnt everything there is, and he's the true master because he knows humility, respect, and he just wants to wrap up the thread of being the one that actually gets out there and really teaches the teacher in this, teaches the maestro, and that's the real beautiful thing about this film. They really show that to every extent. So I think F. Murray, this is probably his best film. F. Murray Abraham is an extraordinary actor. Born Murray Abraham in 1939. Known for many, many roles. Obviously, some of the big ones being Amadeus, obviously, as Antonio Salieri. And Salieri, obviously, amazing character in that way too. Obviously, being on stage and also hugely in film. Some of the big ones he's been in: All the President's Men, Scarface, obviously you remember him from, Amadeus, The Name of the Rose, and The Innocent Man, Last Action Hero as well. So, some really interesting roles over the years, I think is just perfect. One of the more interesting ones was, of course, he was in Star Trek, but also Finding Forrester. So some interesting roles there as well. We also got, obviously, Eric Roberts in this. Eric's always been great, I personally think. Best of the Best is probably my favorite film that he's in, but he's pretty damn amazing in this as well. It really shows, again, all sides of what you're going to do as a, a fight teacher, in this case, a fencing instructor, a maestro. So I think he's done a fantastic job in this as well, and really nailed it. Obviously, Mia Sara, we've got Christopher Adele, Elaine Kagan, and Bret Cullen. Other students playing this are Doug Wirt and Stephen Polk, and it's the second film appearance of Eve Kagan plays Gallagher's daughter. Her first appearance had been in 1989. The film also directed by Kagan. Bill Conti does a pretty, I'd say, modern score in this. It's very contemporary. It's quite good too. A lot of it was done by classical guitarist Angel Romero, and it's beautifully played. It was released at the Vancouver International Film Festival in 1991 and appeared at the American Film Market at Santa Monica in October of the same year, and then at Palm Springs International. The film itself, I wouldn't say it's a huge, massive, success out here in Australia, but I think when you look at it, this is a film which plays to a lot of the great training films that we see out there, and in particular, I mean, this is up there with the Rockies. I think it's Rocky with a sword. It's kind of the Karate Kid as well to some degree, but it's also a really good, look at masters, apprentices, proteges, and how they come together. I think it's really on point and a fantastic film. If you haven't had a chance to see it too, I think one of the things that really drives me with this film is we've got multiple stories going on at once, which in a 90-minute film, let's say, really come together towards the end. And we've got love in this as well, with Sara's character being involved with Christopher Adele's character. We have also the two different thoughts of training in this too, which I think is really interesting. It's multi-level. There's so many different angles to look at in this film. That's why, I'm surprised it's so short. But that's what brings the brilliance of the directing in this as well. The use of, there's quite dark light used in this, and get that sort of, I'm guessing it's New York, sort of look at it too. So it really has nailed it on all forms. So By the Sword, what do we give it here at Fandom Podcast Network? Well, folks, I can tell you we're going to give this a 4 out of 5 on the Halimax scale. Yes, it is amazing. It is worth your time. Go and check out By the Sword, folks. That's enough from me tonight. We'll catch you next time, of course, on the Little Mullet Podcast. For now, we'll catch you next time.
All right, lights, camera, action. Now, where's the mullet? Where is he? Is he coming in by chopper again?
And now, live from Quinlan's Cantina in the Gold Coast of Australia, it's time again for your dose of action cinema history from the 80s, 90s, and beyond with the Lethal Mullet Podcast. Oh, g'day, mate. How you going?